Good evening, CR. My name is Mike. I'm a grateful believer in Jesus Christ, and I struggle with materialism, selfishness, and lust. I pray, earnestly pray for all of you out there that this quarantine, this isolation, I think has reached its summit. We're all just getting fed up, and we need to be patient, need to wait on the Lord, and move forward in a spiritual manner. So hopefully this evening's testimony that will be read to you from Concepcion will give you a sense of peace and serenity. Thank you. So with that, I'm going to invite Concepcion to come up.
Good evening, everyone. CR family. My name is Concepcion, and I'm a grateful believer in Jesus Christ, and I struggle with having been physically, sexually, and emotionally abused as a child. And tonight, I'm going to be reading again from Life Selling Choices, and this is Debbie's story. So my name is Debbie, and I'm a believer in Jesus Christ who struggles with codependency. Most of my life, I have felt that Christ was the rock and leader of my life. In the last 8 years, I have learned how important that foundation is. I learned to turn my life and will over to His care and allow Him to change me. The hope the Lord promises by taking the bad things and using them for good has been affirmed in my life. I was born and raised in Southern California. I had a close and loving relationship with my mom and dad. Family life was happy most of the time. When I was 2, my grandmother died and we moved into her house along with a female relative. When I was 3, my brother was born. I was excited to get a baby brother, but I also remember feeling jealous of his blonde curls and blue eyes. I thought he was beautiful like my mom. I was just the opposite. I had low self-esteem at an early age. When my brother started walking, he acted like Dennis the Menace. I learned early that my perfect behavior won praise, love, and respect. When I was 5, we moved to a nice neighborhood into a charming cottage-style house by the best schools. Our relative again moved with us. I don't remember my parents fighting, but my dad did move out into an apartment for about a month. My only memory of this time was going to visit his apartment and seeing an 8x10 framed picture of another woman. Today, I still wonder why he would subject me to this. The way I coped with all of this was to attempt to block it out or minimize it. I learned to do this with other painful issues later in my life. My dad returned home and life went back to normal. My mom was a stay-at-home mom and devoted all her time to taking care of all of us. She was a great cook, a designer seamstress, and worked hard to keep the house clean and comfortable. She always put herself last, rarely buying clothes or anything for herself. My dad was also a hard worker, both on his job and in keeping the house and cars in good repair. My mom and dad both taught me the value of hard work and perseverance. When my dad got home from work, my parents would have their nightly cocktails, but I never remember seeing them drunk. I can't ever remember them having heart-to-heart talks, but instead, they stayed very busy or watched television. My dad discouraged my mom from seeing her family, but he insisted that his relative continue to live with us. We spent every weekend with another relative and her husband. These women were part of my day-to-day family and unfortunately were not positive role models. One was an unhappy overweight woman in a continuing relationship with her high school boyfriend who was married. My parents never told us that there was anything wrong with this. They just felt sorry for her. She also brought pornographic magazines into the house. Childish curiosity caused me to peek at these, but they made me feel sick and uncomfortable. The other relative and her husband were even more destructive to our family. The husband was a professional gambler and an alcoholic and made a lot of money through the card club that he kept open by paying off government officials. His wife called all the shots with my dad. My father allowed this because of his Armenian cultural beliefs. Nothing made you break ties with family. I also believe that my dad equated wealth with importance, no matter how that wealth was gained. My dad's relative would go into full manipulation or rage if my dad did not do whatever she wanted. He would allow me to go out to dinner with them at 10 o'clock at night to avoid a conflict with her. They eventually had a daughter of their own. She was subjected to much emotional, verbal, and physical abuse. It was not uncommon for them to break into full-blown fights during our family gatherings, involving every foul word, throwing heavy objects, or the woman chasing her husband with a knife. I will never understand why my dad did not remove us as soon as conflict broke out. But he didn't. As children, my brother and I just got used to it. We really didn't know what normal was. We learned to accept abuse as normal. Why did people who said they loved you behave this way? My mom took me to Sunday school every week at a small Baptist church, which I was very grateful for. This is where I learned about Jesus, the love he had for me and the love I had for him. He became my safe refuge. My parents did not go to church and did not depend on God, although they would say they believed in him. I was baptized, committed my life to Christ, and served in my youth group. I wanted to go into ministry, but in the 60s, I felt that was not encouraged for women. I did believe if I followed his ways, he would take care of me and remove the chaos from my life. Because of my relationship with Jesus, I was able to stand up to my family in my teen years about things I knew were wrong. When I was 11, the husband of my dad's relative was arrested. It was front page news in our city paper. During his trial, he committed suicide. His wife became even more emotionally unstable. And finally, after an ugly display, my dad had to cut off our relationship with her. For a while, all was well. But when I was 13, I received some shocking news from my mom. She told me that she had been married once before and had 2 other children. She had left the children when they divorced because she felt she had no way to care for them. This was unbelievable coming from my sweet Donna Reed mom. I didn't know what was real and what wasn't. I learned not to trust or expect any security. Although my relationship with my dad was okay, he had unexpected moments of rage. These were not usually directed at me, but at my mom or brother. When this would happen, my mom would never speak up for herself. She knew it would make his anger worse. My role in the family became the rational peacemaker. On many occasions, I would have to talk my dad down off one of his irrational binges. I also learned how to be a people pleaser and stay in his good graces. I avoided being a target at all cost. During high school, I became more focused on doing all the things I thought would bring me praise and, more important, a secure future. I was determined to do certain things to ensure that my future did not look like my past. I made good grades, was president of our Baptist Youth Fellowship, went to college, and tried to live the best godly life I could. My big mistake was looking to affirm myself through male attention. I really loved the fact that I always had a boyfriend, with someone always in the wings if I wasn't being treated perfectly. I realized now I was trying to fill my heart with love and raise my self-esteem. After I graduated from college, I felt I was ready to make a life for myself. I found a great job and was feeling good. I soon started dating my husband to be Tim, and all seemed perfect. We had known each other casually since we were 12. My impression of him was that of a super clean-cut basketball player from a good family, a regular Pat Boone. As I got to know him, I was excited that we had similar goals and morals. He had a very positive outlook and loving nature. He told me his family did not believe in Jesus, but he had come to believe in him through religious education classes in his elementary school. He didn't feel close to his family, which was fine with me, because it gave us more time at my parents'. I didn't realize it then, but I was repeating my old family habits. He fulfilled everything in my perfect husband list. We had a romantic, fun, whirlwind courtship and were engaged in 6 weeks. During our engagement, I realized Tim drank a bit, but I thought all young men did. I didn't know what normal was. We got married in December of 1972. I became pregnant a few months later. The stress for Tim of being a father and breadwinner caused a time of upheaval in our marriage that would come and go in the years to come. Tim's drinking escalated, and so did his verbal and emotional abuse. He struggled with depression and escaped to another relationship. I focused on caring for our daughter and trying to stuff my great pain and feeling of betrayal. I had empathy for Tim's depression, as I was well aware of his unhappy childhood, but the only thing I knew how to do was pray and go to church. I constantly looked at myself and wondered what I had done to cause him to lose love for me. I tried to do everything I could to fix it. If only I had kept the apartment perfect. If only I would lose weight. My self-worth was at an all-time low. When I look back, I'm amazed that I allowed myself to be treated so shabbily, but I didn't believe God wanted me to divorce. Also, I had watched my mom put up with so much pain, past and present. This was normal, right? Over time, our relationship improved and Tim started attending church off and on. We all struggled with Tim's issues of drinking and temper outbursts. Then in 1986, Tim decided to stop drinking, still denying that he was an alcoholic. However, his pain from his childhood didn't stop. Without a recovery program or counseling, we still struggled with his anger and trading of dependencies. After each incident of verbal abuse directed at our daughter or me, or a broken promise involving his sexual addiction, my husband would ask for forgiveness, and I gave it. I thought it was easier to try to forgive than to set boundaries or to carry out consequences. I continued to repress and stuff my anger, which led to resentment, depression, and a lack of ability to offer a truly intimate relationship. Our daughter and I continued to attend church, and I got involved in women's ministry. Over time, Tim started to attend church regularly again, and things seemed to be better each day. I really thought our problems were behind us. In 1999, our daughter was getting married, and we hit our 50s, fertile ground for midlife crisis and untreated addiction meltdown. I started noticing signals that all was not well. Tim began isolating himself more, and I noticed an escalation in girl watching and flirtation. Being the good codependent that I was, I did all I could to control the situation. I continued to ask him, is something bothering you? Are you behaving in ways you shouldn't? Why are you watching TV by yourself instead of as a family? Of course, his response was, everything is fine. You are imagining things. You're paranoid. I could only accept those answers, go into hypervigilance, and make sure to be with him as much as possible to try and head off any problems. I honed my quiet, controlling behavior to a new level. One day, when I was feeling particularly anxious, knowing all was not well, I pleaded with God to help me. He so clearly provided me with the answer, release him. Confused by thinking that God wanted me to divorce, I answered, I can't do that now. This isn't a good time. My dad is dying and my daughter's getting married. Again, God clearly directed me, release him. This time I understood God's direction. Nothing I did or could do would help Tim. All my enabling and trying to control had only gotten in God's way. I painfully learned we had to hit our bottom to allow us to come out of denial and let God and his people help us heal. A few weeks later, we did hit bottom. We will never forget the day. This was a traumatic day, but also a day that was a turning point in our family. Tim made an appointment with a Christian psychologist. The counselor informed us that Tim was a dry alcoholic who had traded addictions. Since Tim had quit drinking on his own with no recovery program, he still had the addictive personality. Our counselor felt there was little hope for our marriage because so much damage had been done repeatedly and so much trust had been lost. I have to admit, I completely agreed with him at the time. All trust and respect had been destroyed in my heart and mind. I just didn't think I could go on after 26 years of being hurt and lied to. I think the only reason I had for trying was to hold the family together, one day at a time. My dad was dying from congestive heart and kidney failure, and my beautiful and treasured daughter was starting her new married life. Little did I realize that Tim and I were starting our new married life too. The chains of dysfunction that had run through our family were about to be broken. Our psychologist told us to go to Celebrate Recovery. He recommended books for us to read. We completely immersed ourselves in recovery. The more we learned and understood about addiction, healing from past wounds and poor relationship skills, the more we wanted to understand. We started the Celebrate Recovery participant guides and joined a Monday night step study. Then on Tuesday nights, we went to the class on boundaries. Wednesdays, we were home reading and working on our recovery material. Thursdays, with our counselor. Friday nights at Celebrate Recovery, and Saturday nights at church. Every morning, Tim would get up at the crack of dawn and go to a recovery meeting. We knew we had to totally reprogram our old ways of thinking and relating. We were ready for the next step, which was voluntarily submit to every change God wants to make in my life and humbly ask him to remove my character defects. We were devoted to doing all the work it would require. We actually looked forward to it. There was great freedom in the new and intimate relationship we were forming with God, each other, and the other members of our Celebrate Recovery small groups. One of our greatest blessings was that our daughter and her husband started attending Celebrate Recovery with us. They also completed the step study for themselves. I won't say that every day was easy or pain-free. It wasn't. I learned that I had an idealized version of my family life in my head. I knew that hurtful events had occurred and that I had the habit of minimizing them to minimize my pain. I also learned that I tried to control everything I could in a fruitless attempt to keep chaos and injury out of my life. Day by day, the Lord healed my broken heart, and he showed me how my life had gotten to this point and the part I played in it. He has brought wonderful ladies into my life who love me and let me love them. This kind of friendship was something I had lost during the years of trying to keep secrets and hide the problems in my family. God has healed and grown my marriage into a deep friendship built on newfound truthfulness, respect, intimacy, and playful romance. He healed my daughter and son-in-law's emotions and hearts. This is an awesome treasure, for it promises a break in the chain of our family dysfunction and a rich and loving future for our grandchildren. God has proven to me that he will bring good out of bad in a dramatic way. We were so grateful for all the Lord had given us that we wanted to give back. We now share our experiences with others and encourage them to come to Celebrate Recovery. Tim and I became leaders and co-lead groups on Friday nights and Monday night step studies. I continue to grow as I serve in this way. The Lord has truly restored the years that were lost. So thank you for letting me share this testimony with you, and Mike is going to lead us through the Serenity Prayer.
Thank you for that testimony, Concepcion. So let me take a moment and lead us in the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as pathway to peace, taking as Jesus did this sinful world as it is, not as I would have it, trusting that you will make all things right if I surrender to your will, so that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with you forever and the next. God bless you all. See you next week.